Hello. Today you're going to be walked through how to set up NCAA ISP features for ATS. So to begin, you will need administrator access in ATS in order to be able to set up the module. So if you don't have that, make sure that you have that prior to attempting to set up your module. Also, you should have received an email that has instructions as well as a school ID. That school ID will be needed for this, so make sure that you have that handy as we walk through. So to begin, you'll go to Admin, Site Info. This window takes a little while to open, so if it doesn't open right away, don't be alarmed. Once that loads, you'll go to the Modules tab. On this left-hand side, you'll scroll down, and underneath General, you'll scroll down until you see the checkbox for NCAA. Make sure that you click that checkbox. The check mark should appear. From there, you'll come up to the Opt3 tab. Here's where you're going to enter your NCAA school ID. So you'll get that from the Data Center. You'll get that in the initial email. You'll enter that here. Here for year, the school year is 1920, no spaces, no dashes. And for calendar year, we want that to begin on July 1st, 2019 and 6/30/2020. Once you have that information entered, you'll save, and you can close out of that. From here, you'll go back to admin, but this time you're going to go to users and then my user. As the administrator, you will be able to do this next step for any of your athletic trainers that will need access to the module. So we'll come to the Modules tab. We'll scroll down to NCAA, and you'll want to change the access to read-write. Once that is done, you will have access to the NCAA module. So as the administrator, make sure that you have read-write as your access, and you can save and close that. If you are adding this access for other users, you'll go to Admin, Users, Search All Users. You can click on any of your athletic trainers that will need access. You'll do the same thing. You'll go into Modules, you'll scroll down to NCAA, and you'll give them read-write access. This will allow them to also access the NCAA module. Once that is completed, you'll need to close down ATS completely and open it back up so that those changes take effect. That will be necessary before you can proceed to the next step. So once you open ATS back up, you'll be setting up your teams for participation. So you'll go to Admin, Add Update Teams and Organizations, Add Update All Teams. At this point, it will pull up a list of all of your sports. You should see this new column that says NCAA Sport. Some of you will already have abbreviations of your sports. Others may have blanks here. If you have a blank, you're able to figure out what the abbreviation should be in this. To email or call the data to access to that information. So this part is important based on what sports you're going to be collecting for the injury surveillance program. So if you're going to be doing all sports, just make sure that they all have abbreviations. If you're only going to do a couple of your sports, you'll give the abbreviation, and then the important thing to do for all of the sports that you're not going to participate with. So again, not participating. You will need to click the Bypass NCAA checkbox. That's located underneath the sport name, and this will ensure that that sport's data will not be transmitted to the ISP, as well as the athletic trainer for that sport will not be prompted to fill out that information for the ISP for that particular sport. So if you are a school that's only going to do a couple of your sports, make sure that you're bypassing the sports that you do not want to collect and submit data for. Once that is done, you have everything set up team-wise. The last thing that you need to do is go to Admin and then Maintenance, drop-down pop-up lists, Update drop-down pop-up lists. In pop-up area, go to Body Parts. This will pull up a list of all of the body parts that you've added in ATS or that were already in your ATS system without customization. Again, there's a new column that says NCAA/HS body part. If there are any blanks in this column, you will need to select the body part that's appropriate and choose from this drop-down list. Again, if you have any questions about what something should fall under, feel free to reach out to the Data Center for help with that. You'll see I have a blank here for NA, and that's just because we don't have anything for that, and I'm more than likely never going to choose NA, so I don't need an appropriate body part selected. So if you have any blanks, make sure those are filled in appropriately, and then once that is done, you can save and close. And then the back end of your system is all set up for participation. The next part of this tutorial is going to be walking you through the actual participation process. To participate in the ISP, you will be required to submit exposure information. What that is games and practices for all of the sports that you're going to be participating with. We ask for a preseason, regular season, and postseason, if applicable, for each sport. So to add games and practices, we have two ways to do that. One is adding individual games and practices through the scheduling feature of ATS, and another is actually uploading an existing calendar into ATS and then adding the necessary NCAA information. If you already have an existing calendar format and are interested in uploading that calendar, reach out to the Data Center for more specific instructions on how to do so. So I'm going to walk you through just the process of adding individual exposures. So we'll go to scheduling and then make an appointment. I'm going to select my team from the drop-down list in the upper left-hand corner. ATS is going to require that I select a purpose in order to save, so I'll do that. But that information does not come through to us, so don't worry about what you select there. That's just ATS requiring something to save. Notes and Event Info tab is where the NCAA information is. In here, you will select the event type, the season, the surface type, and the number to participate. This number to participate is the number of athletes that either went through the warm-up and or cool-down. So basically it's your roster size minus who you know is out due to injury. If you don't get an exact head count, give us your best guess. ATS is going to default to your roster size here, so that's what the 7 is. I have 7 football players on my ATS account, so it's going to default to 7. If you are unable to get a head count, like I said, best case is going to be your roster size minus who you know is out due to injury. So once I've added that information, I will save it, and my appointment is saved. So that's today's practice. Easy enough to go in and add each individual practice and or game. I suggest doing it every day or every week. We do have some athletic trainers that try and do the whole season up front, and that works for them. But I've found in my experience with working with athletic trainers that it is easiest to try and do it every day or every week so you have a better sense of what your schedule is. So now I'm going to add an injury for one of our athletes here to show you the new additional tab in your injury report. So I'll open up my fake athlete here, and he plays football. So once I've selected the team, I'm going to fill out this top half of the injury report the same way that I normally would. So I'll go through and make my selections. And then the additional information is in this NCAA/HS tab. Click there. In this event dropdown, you'll find your games and practices that have been added to your schedule. So you'll see the one that I just added there. I select the practice that he got hurt at. I go through and I will fill out the information. These are all going to be drop downs. They're all going to be sport specific. They're all going to have information. So for example, basic injury mechanism, if I selected contact with playing apparatus, I'm going to have different options than if I select no apparent contact. Activity at the time of injury, event segment, location on the field, player position, who they were assessed by, outcome. This one is super important for us because this is a lot of times what gets ATs tripped up in ATS. So when we're selecting an outcome that we know is going to result in some time lost, for example, this high ankle sprain, I'm going to choose prevented participation for more than 24 hours. The athlete returned before the end of the season. This means I can enter a return date at any point during the season when he does return to play because he did miss time. We also have complicated or intermittent return to play. What this means is you may have an athlete that comes back for a few days and then needs to sit out a few more in order to play on Saturday. If that's the case, choose that, and then your return date isn't necessarily required, but you can add one as needed. We have some non-time loss, did not interfere, returned within the same session, and removed from team activity, but returned within 24 hours. And then we have some more severe outcomes that you can choose as well. But it's really important if they're going to miss time that you do select a select a time loss outcome. That will not require me to enter a return date. All other information will be required in order to save. So I'll go through all that. I save. And then that's all that I need to do for the ISP. The last thing that you will need to do in order to submit as the administrator is at least once a month, ideally more like once a week, we ask that you submit the data to us. And that's done by going to Admin, Import, Export, Dataless NCAA Submissions, Create NCAA Information. I will click that. It'll ask if I want to continue. I will click yes. I'd select my organization if applicable. And it will create a submission that comes through to us. Those submissions are reviewed by the Dataless Center, and someone will be in contact with you if there are any errors that need to be updated and how to fix those errors. So we really pride ourselves on getting those to you in a timely manner. So if you are submitting to us weekly and we're turning those around and getting any errors back to you to be able to fix by the time you submit again, those should be resolved. And the more you submit and the more data is coming to us, the better it's going to be on both ends. So don't get discouraged if you do get an email from the Dataless Center with those errors, because this is a learning curve and we expect there to be errors in the beginning. So as my ATS slowly sends the data that I have added into the system through, we're just going to get this little circle But eventually this will create a confirmation code for me. I can keep that for my records, or I certainly don't have to, because I know that if there are errors, someone will be in touch with me on how to fix those. So that is a very quick tutorial on how to set up your system for participation, as well as how to actually participate and fill out the additional information. And like I said, my submission code is here. I can reference that if I need to. But thank you for taking the time to set up your ATS for participation, and we hope that this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Datalist Center. If it is a specific question for ATS, feel free to reach out to them as well. They are one of our certified vendors, so they're very familiar with this process. So again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we appreciate you participating in the NCAA Injury Surveillance Program.